All right, so we're going to go over tonight tweening and morphing. So I'm going to put black solid down behind this just so we're not staring at something too bright. And I'm going to draw a star. I'll give it no stroke and a fill. All right, so I'm going to go down to the polystar path right here. And I'm going to start off with 3 points. I'm going to click on the point number, go forward a little bit, and I'll change it to 9. This is an example of a tween. The computer is doing all the work for us. It's going from one shape to the next automatically with no forethought. That's a tween. Okay, you're just changing from one shape to another over time. I did that by changing the number of points in the star. That's tweening with a shape layer, okay? And it can get a little bit more complicated than that. But I'm just showing you the basic definition. Now we're going to do tweening with a mask. Okay, now tweening with a mask is more complex than tweening with a shape layer. So to get my mask, I've got to have the layer that I want to put a mask on it selected, and then I can do my shapes. So I'll go from a circle to a star. Let's go draw my mask right there and position it with the arrow tools till it's about centered. Now I'm going to draw a star mask. And I'm going to position that with the arrow tool as well. When you're doing tweens and morphs, you want stuff to be similar in size and lined up. So this is like fairly lined up and they're roughly the same size. So this will work pretty good. You don't want the shape to be like over here. I'm going to hit undo because then when you're making your tween, it'll move while you're doing that. So first, I've got 2 masks. I'm going to click the mask path for each so that there's a keyframe. Now, when you're using masks in After Effects, masks do a lot more than just hold the shape of the path. They also hold data on like what's inside it, if there's an image. Is it an add? Is it a subtract? So there's a lot of detail inside those keyframes. So all I have to do for this to work is I copy this second mask shape. So I'm going to go back up to this mask, click my diamond to create an empty keyframe, and paste it in there. So I can get rid of this mask because I don't need it anymore because I pasted the keyframe here. And now we've got a mask that is tweening. Because this is the basic part. Once we get into image morphing, it's going to get far more complex. So the second shape, we used the keyframe from its path and pasted it up into the first shape to create that tween. I'm going to bring in a video clip and show you something. All right, so let me find a 4K video clip real fast. Let's grab this one. Okay, so whenever you bring in a video clip, all the information is up here. And I know this is 4K because it's 3840 by 2160. The 1.0 means it's square pixels, done on a computer or digital camera. This is the duration. There's the frame count. There's color and no audio. So I'm going to drag my video clip straight to the new composition button so that all the settings match. Let me just move this over here. All right, and I'll fit this to view. All right, when you're working with light things, you got to be careful. You don't want things to be too fast and too strobing because you don't want to give anyone an epileptic seizure. So you've got to watch out for that with your motion design. That and if you draw your line strokes thinner than 2, I usually do 2 as a minimum. But if you go thinner than that, sometimes that thin flickering line can be bad for people's health too. So just be careful of that. Okay, so here's the green flare. Okay, we've got that. And I'm going to put a new solid behind it, something that we can see. I'll make a pink color. I'll put that at the bottom. Okay, so we remembered I talked about blending modes. And with light effects, you normally want to do a screen blending mode. So here I'm in my switches. I need to be in modes. So I click toggle switches and modes down here. If I change this blend mode to screen, it's going to get rid of all the black and you just have the light effect that was created. So I could do a screen there, or in effects, I could use the unmolt effect and we get a different look because we're not losing some of the white detail with that blending mode. So there's actually a little bit more here to it than we had with the screen. So sometimes you can get a little bit more data back using the unmolt effect. So I'm just going to use unmolt for this. Okay, so let's say I use this element and the client goes, that's too slow. So they want it sped up. So I'm going to show you a couple ways to speed up clips. Right click on the video clip. This only works for videos. Go to time stretch. And watch your original duration and new duration here. So if I make this 200%, that's half the speed because now the new duration is double the size. So that's too slow. So if I make it 50, that's half the time. So this means 50 is twice as fast. So now the clip is going to play at twice the speed. And it's half the time because we sped it up twice. Another useful time thing with video clips, right click, time reverse layer. And this works, I think, with pre-comps too. You can play the layer backwards. So it starts at the end and works its way backwards to the beginning. That's what time reverse does. So I'll undo that. And let's say you're doing a credit sequence and you want to have, like right about here, we'll pretend there's a person here and then text pops out behind them. So that one is splitting the layer, Command Shift D or Control Shift D, or you could just go Edit, Split Layer. So that's going to split the layer. Now, if I right click, go to Time, to Freeze Frame. That's what we wanted. We wanted freeze frame. So now it's not moving anymore. So pretend there's a person here, you silhouette it out and their name shoots behind them. That's how they do it in the movies. Then, so you think of how long you want it up. Let's say we want it up this long. I'm going to Command Shift D or Control Shift D, split the layer one more time, or you can go Edit, Split Layer. And I'm going to hit the U key. There's my freeze frame. I delete it. And now it's back to where it was. And keeps playing from there. So that's how you can create a freeze frame with a video sequence for putting in text. The last time effect I'm going to show you is time warp. Right down here. And time warp is very useful. So the first thing you got to know about it is the speed has to be 100. 100 is normal speed. Time warp will speed up or slow down parts of a video clip, like in 300 with bullet time or in 300. So this is how they do it. So let's say I go to about here and I want to start changing the speed. All I have to do is click the speed stopwatch and hit U on the video layer to see my keyframes. So 100 is full speed. I want to speed this up. So I'm going to go to about here and I'm going to go to 300 speed. And what that means is it's going to, from here to that marker, get 3 times faster. If I want to keep it at 300 speed for a little bit, I just add another frame, another keyframe with that keyframe button. This will be 300, just like that's 300. So I can go here and change the speed to, let's say, 25, so it ends slow. Actually, I'll slide all these down a little bit because there's a short clip. So it's going 100% till it gets to here, and it's 300%. Then it's going to slow down to 25%. And then I could just go here and end it at normal speed if I wanted to. So that's an example of slowing down and speeding up a clip. I'm going to drop the resolution so it goes faster, like that. So that's one way you could use an effect you found online, but make it more customized and more your own by giving it that change in its velocity with time warp. Just remember, speed 100% is normal speed. You go lower than that, you're going to slow it down. You go faster than that, you're going to speed it up. Okay, now this is a little too bright. So remember, you can always go layer solid settings to change the color of a solid layer you have in your timeline. So I'm going to make this blue so it's easier on our eyes. And we're going to go back to that star again. And I'll make the star red. And let's put the anchor point in the middle. So if you want to get the anchor point in the middle real quick, you just hold down Command or Control and double click on the pan behind tool to get the anchor to the middle. Okay, now I'm going to bring in a song and I'm going to show you how to get audio from keyframes. So I'm going to go File, Import File to get my audio track. Let's see, that should be right there, music. So here's all the music I took off YouTube. And I'll just grab this one. So if I click here, you can see here's the length, there's the audio, here's the hertz of the audio, but there's no image. So I know that that's just a song. It's audio only. So I just throw it in my timeline. So to get keyframes from it, let me hit the space bar and I'll play the audio for you through here. So let me switch my audio real quick. And there's the audio. Okay, was everyone able to hear the audio on that? Okay. Let me check and see what my composition length is. One other thing, you see my starting time code is all weird. So I just hit 0 here. Now I'm back to 0 for my time code and everything's going to work out fine. Okay, so now I've got 10 seconds of the audio. Or I should say my sequence is 10 seconds. All right. To get our keyframes, I right-click on the audio layer, go to Keyframe Assistant, convert audio to keyframes. So again, any layer that has audio, select it, right-click, Keyframe Assistant, convert audio to keyframes. And it has to be in the timeline for that to happen. Now I'm going to hit U on my keyboard, and there's my keyframes. I've got the left channel, the right channel, and both channels. Usually you'll use both channels because that's where most of the keyframes will be coming from. So with my star select, I'm going to hit S for scale. And I'm going to Alt or Option click on the scale stopwatch. And I'm going to grab my pick whip from the expression field, not from the parenting section. And I'm going to drag it to the word slider for both sliders. And I'm going to hit the space bar once I click out the expression field. Like such. So now the scale is being driven by the music. And let me go to Effect Controller. Let me click off that. So here is that effect. So if I click on the word slider, it's going to get all the keyframes. And I'm going to, with all the keyframes adjusted, let me make sure I'm over a keyframe. All right. I'm going to increase this slider with all the keyframes selected, and you see my star gets bigger. So now let's see if it keeps that animation. So to make the star bigger, I went to a keyframe, clicked on the word slider to select all my keyframes, and then I adjusted this number, and that uniformly made each keyframe have a greater impact on the scale of the star. So now it's a lot larger than it was than when this was set to like 1. So anything with the stopwatch, you can put audio keyframes into. So if I put a glow on this star, and since this is a light effect, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and click in my project panel where it says 8 BPC, 8 bits per channel. I'm going to make that 32 bits per channel. Now, where did my glow effect go? Okay, there we go. So here's the glow. I'm going to adjust the radius, and we can already see it starting here. And let's change the threshold to get something really noticeable. And what I can do is I could use maybe the glow intensity. So I'll hold down Alt or Option to click there. Here's my glow intensity. I get the pick whip from the expression field because I held down Alt or Option. Give myself a little bit more space here. And I'm going to grab the pick whip. And again, I'm going to go to the word slider for both channels. So that's a bit too harsh of an effect. So I could say, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, click on that stopwatch again to get rid of it. And this time I'll do glow radius. So I'll hold down Alt or Option, click there, grab the pick whip, go to slider, click out the expression, hit the space bar and find out what it does. So it's not as extreme as the other effect, but it's still driving that effect. So I could try something like glow threshold, Alt or Option click in there, drag that up to both sliders, scrub through and see what happens. See, now we're going to see something more quickly noticeable. So I could select all of those keyframes while I'm over one. And I could try adjusting this here to uniformly, see if I can uniformly select them all. But that didn't really do much. So it's doing a little bit. When you scrub through, you can see some flickering inside. So that got back some of the detail. So that's one way to get keyframes from audio. Any questions on that first part? Getting keyframes from audio is pretty useful for things like commercials or credit sequences because it follows along to the beat of the music. I'm going to show you another way of getting keyframes from audio. I still got my song in here. And I'm going to try same thing, right click, keyframe assistant, convert audio to keyframes. And I'll use I think this one works off of masks, so we'll find out in a second. So I'm going to duplicate this shape layer, and I'm just going to use a star mask and put it close to the center. And I believe it's audio spectrum. So I'm going to throw that on there. Yeah, this looks right. So what audio spectrum is going to do, it's going to get the keyframes from here. It already found, well, we got to choose the audio. Okay, there we go. And I choose the mask path. Yeah, it does. It is mask related. Okay. So here's my audio track. I threw audio spectrum on the mask layer. I'll call this mask layer. And then, so I chose my music. Then I chose which mask I'm using. Start frequency, end frequency. I'm going to do maximum height. I'm not going to mess around with the frequencies. Now, once I did maximum height, you're starting to see the effect happening right there. Now, let's try frequency bands. That's the number of bands we're going to see. There we go. Now we're starting to see more of it. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. And then I'll make the height a little bit more. Okay, great. So now we've got the effect coming into play. I'm going to drop down my resolution just so we can play the audio faster. And you've seen this a billion times on YouTube. So the frequency bands and the max height we adjusted so we could start seeing the effect. Now the inside and outside color, we could try two totally different colors. Like I could do green for the inside and let's try red for the outside. Now, right down here, display options. These are the different types of lines we can get. So let me up the resolution so you can see that. That one's not that big. Let me make the softness 0 so they're harder. And let me change the thickness a bit. Okay, so now we can see the effect a little better. So if I just scrub through, that's what the analog dots look like. There's the analog lines, and there's the digital lines. So those are your three options. And then you can choose side A, side B, or side A and B. So side A would be what's on the inside of the shape. Let me drop down my resolution. So it's only going inside. Side B would be the outside of the stroke with the mask. And then A and B is both the inside and the outside. So once you understand this, we can go M for mask, and I can press Command D to duplicate that mask. So now we've got two masks. So for the first mask, I'll do just the inside. And for the second mask, oh wait, you know what? Let's not duplicate the masks. Let me hit undo. I'm going to duplicate the layer. Command D. Okay, so for the top one, I'm going to choose A for the outside with analog dots, and I'm going to make them pink so we can see these dots. And I could choose, I'll choose side A. And for this layer here, we've got digital, and I'll just do side B. So combining those two, I got my own effect going. And if I wanted to, one last thing to drive it all home, I'm going to delete that top one. So here's our layer going on like that. And I'm going to press M, delete the mask. That's what's going to happen with our effect. So instead, I'm going to put a letter. Let me find a better font. Come on, let's do this one. Okay, so I've got a letter shape. I'm going to right click and choose create masks from text. Instead of shape, now I've got a mask. So there's my mask. I'm going to copy the audio spectrum. Oh, wait 1 second. I'm going to undo that. So let me press M. Here's my mask path. There's my keyframe. So here's where the effect is. Let me press M. There's no mask on that layer. Okay. So I can just quickly select that, draw mask shape. Now there's my mask. So there's my path. I'm going to copy this mask path, paste it there. Now I can delete that. So there's my audio layer. Now I've got to choose my mask layer. And now it's choosing that letter. Okay, so that's the first part of it. So I can pick another letter. So I'm going to deselect that layer. Use my initials, right click, create masks from shapes, press M. Okay, so which is the big layer? Let's see. Looks like it's this one. So I'm going to copy that keyframe. I can now delete that. I can delete that. I can delete that. And on the original M layer, I add an extra keyframe, paste it into that keyframe. Now I've got an animated mask with the audio effect on it. So you know how to do a tween, and you know how to do a mask tween. So I'm going to delete all this, and I'm going to start on morphing, which is far more complex. But I'm only going to start that tonight because it's going to take a while to go over that. So I found it just by doing MW underscore. So there's tomato and a bottle of ketchup. So that's what we're going to work off of next week. So I'm going to import them in here. And I'm going to make my new comp. It's going to be 1920 by 1080. 24 frames. 10 seconds, sure. And I'm going to drag both of these into it. And what you're going to see is these are a little too large. So I'm going to select them both, hit S, and scale them down. Okay, so I'm going to put the tomato on top so we can see it. I made these 1-to-1 ratio to themselves. Like the bottle of ketchup is roughly that size and the tomato is roughly that size. So I had to get them in the proper aspect ratio to each other so that whatever I scale them down in here, they're scaled down the same. This would not work if, let's say, the ketchup bottle or the tomato was scaled 40% and the ketchup bottle was only scaled 65%. They got to be 1-to-1 to each other. So that's why in Photoshop, I silhouetted these out and I made them comparable to each other's size so that they'd be the same scale size in After Effects. Does that part make sense? When you're doing image morphing, You want to have them the right aspect to each other. And you'll always get better results with things that have similar shapes. Like if you go from a dog to a cat, that'll work because they both walk on 4 legs. They both have a tail. They both have ears. But going from like a dog to an octopus will be a little less successful or more tricky because the octopus has more parts. This morph will work because I've got some rounded edges that are similar here, here, and here. So that's going to be like my driving point. Plus, this will make sense visually because the ketchup is made from tomatoes. So if you had like a jug of apple juice and an apple, you know, something like that would work. The shapes have a little bit of similarity, and the theme of this animation will make sense because you get ketchup from a tomato. That's why I'm doing this, and that's why I set that up like such. So that's where I'm going to end the lecture. The storyboard I got from Ellen. Looking at your idea, it doesn't seem like it's going to have a lot of motion to it because the car it's a side shot. It's just moving straight across the screen, and the buildings are going to be popping up vertically. So it's like, unless your artwork is stellar and you're going to be using texture and lots of stuff, I don't know if this is going to be like have enough oomph for a final project.
Yeah, I'm still pretty
Mm-hmm. Right, but one thing that's strong about this is you thought out there's going to be a transition, and like you thought that out. So you already know the idea of like, I want to have multiple scenes and I want to go from one way to the next for that. So that's good. You just got to figure out what you're going to fill in those scenes for whatever you're going to be doing. So at least, you know, your concept of, you know, knowing in advance, I want to get from one scene to a next is you're one step ahead of the game. Transparency, yes, but what's the fast way of getting a flicker with it? Yes, very good. Yep, that's the right answer. That's right out of the bat. That's everything right there. You expression, wiggle on the opacity. Yep. Okay, there we go. So I want to try and find something a little bit more hand-drawn. Okay, here we go. All right, so they had their type, and I'm going to duplicate this. And it's also, they made multiple colors, but, you know, I don't need to do that for you to get that part. Okay, so let me spread this out a little bit. Oops, no. Right there, I'm going to try and line it up, because like I said before, lining stuff up, is that scaling it out? Yeah, that's scaling it out. So I think it's, nope. I'm just going to kern this the old-fashioned way. If you can keep your layers lined up, and I'm going to select all this and colorize it just so it's a little easier to see the difference between them. So keeping the eye in one spot will help with these flickers and stuff like that. So roughly, my letters are lined up to the other ones. So if we did T for opacity, hold down Alt or Option, click here, wiggle, parentheses, let's do 1,300. Okay, that's 2,800. Let's try 5,500. I'm just guessing at this. Okay, that's a little bit more. Okay. So we got a flickering happen, and they're having... Okay, wait a second. So if I do that, that's going to show that. Okay. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold out Alt or Option, turn off that expression. So it's 5, 500. You'll see it'll make sense in a second. So I'm going to add a solid, and I'm just going to make it whatever color. I'll do black. So I've got text and a solid. If I pre-compose these together, I'll call this green text, move all attributes. Now, since there's a solid covering up, this will work. So I put my expression on again, wiggle, 5, 500, click out of it, hit the spacebar to preview it. Look at that. That makes sense to you? By having the solid and the text pre-compose, or whatever background element you're using, that's what causes this flicker, because I had to hide the layer below it. And you could choose more fonts or whatever for that. Let's try something else real quick. Now this is extreme, and I've not done this before, so I'm just being experimental. Okay. I'm going to find a more soothing color than that. But if that doesn't work, this will work, where you're flashing between two fonts. And if you want to get very technical with it, you could mask out each font. Like this is one font, that's another font. You could mask this. So one font showing, a second font is showing, a third font is showing, using masks. That makes sense to you? And, or you could even, okay, so we've got this happening, and we've already figured this out. So let's simplify the process. We use one word at a time. Like I said, doing kinetic type is very time consuming. So you've got to have a strong idea of what you want to do if you're going to put in the effort. All right, so there's our first word. If we duplicate it, change the font. Let me spread this out a little bit. Okay. And I'll do one more font. So I'm going to duplicate this. Pick something thicker. Okay. And I'm going to color each one to make it even more distinct. All right, so we've got 3 different fonts. And we know, oh, you know what? I got to spread this out even more, so that the masks will be easier to do. There's where it was. It was this setting right here. Okay, so we've got some space in between the letters. And I'll spread out this one. So there's space to mask. Okay, we've got that working. And we know we can put solids and we can pre-compose. I'm trying to think of a way to randomly show the different layers. So it's multiple layers instead of just 2. And the only thing I can think of for that is if I go, I'm going to add a solid. I'm going to pre-compose these together. I'll call this text 2. Move all attributes. Okay. And I'm going to put a solid behind this one. Recompose this. Call it text 3. Move this. Okay. So why are we not seeing? Oh, you know what? I gotta turn that on. Okay. Okay. So we've got this happening. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to put solid behind this one. Now, like I said, I'm trying something here off the top of my head. That's why I'm going slow, but I'll explain in a second. Okay, 3 pre-comps. You got type, and you've got a solid behind it. And they all roughly line up. Like such. Okay, so if I were to do let me hide this top one. If I were to put an expression on here to change the opacity, let me think. I may have to do this letter by letter for this to work. I think that's the way to do it, or okay, wait, I think I got it. 1 second. All right, so let me hide these. I'm going to duplicate that. We've got that. Let me duplicate one more time. Slide the mask over. Okay, so we've got the first word in each one of these is masked. Now, if I put an expression on this one, we know this will work. 5,500. This will flicker between those top two. And then if I put these 3 on top and put the same expression on them, click out of it. Now let's see what this looks like. That's a little bit of what they did. But I gotta be more careful with how letters and the masks are lining up on some of these things. Like that red B is a little taller. Yeah, so the one layer that was like, let me hide these top 3. So this layer has the expression that's flickering between the top and the bottom layer. That's flickering like that. In the interest of saving time, I masked out the individual letters and I put expression on here. So now we've got 3 different things happening. That was my fast cheat workaround for that. So getting 3 different colors, 3 different letters, 3 different fonts. Once I figured it out, the technique didn't take that long. But it was really just, like I said, a lot of motion design is troubleshooting. So it was me saying, how can I get these layers to flicker, like you said, with this expression? That was when I had... We'll get rid of this. I'll add a stroke. Okay, make it really thick. And I'm going to go to my caps. Round cap, round join. Taper it a bit. So see how now I'm getting that thick to thin like they had. So I used a taper. I rounded the caps for the and the join. So now if I add a trim path, let's see what that looks like. I'm going to animate the end of it. Start 0, go to 1. There you go. That's working. So that's one way of getting that first type of look. And then let's see what happens if we wiggle the paths. Give a little life to it. So that was adding wiggle paths. That was twist. Adding twist to it. Let's see what we can do with twist here. Okay, that's what the center's doing. That's the angle. Okay, so let's try a wiggle there, but something subtle. Let's say twice a second, 30. See what that does. So that's a bit much. Let's do 10. I got a little bit of extra life to it there if you wanted. And then we could start worrying about the look of it. So then we could throw things like rough and edges on it. Cut? No, I think rust may be what we're looking for here. The more you increase the border, the more it's eating into the inside of it. And adding the sharpness to it will give it more of that chalkboard look. You could also adjust the fractal influence. If you want a smaller look, just scale it down a little bit, like such. Now, evolution, if we want this to keep moving inside it, that's where I do my time, asterisk. Let's try 150, so it's not moving too fast. Let's take a look. See how we're starting to get some of that, you know, just by playing around with that? So they're doing things like rough and edges. You could also do a displacement map. And with a lot of these shapes that you see in these motion designs, let's move this here. I'll scale it down a little bit. Put on my title safe area. And I'm going to move my anchor point so it's near the center of the screen. And let's try a radial expression. This looks like it might be it. So it might be under the rotate. Let's see. So that rotated it 20 times. So if I duplicate this, times, it makes a circle. Okay, so that's what it was. So let me undo, and I'll explain that expression to you in a second. This is making sure I found the right one. Okay, you still with me?
Yes.
I held down Alt or Option on whatever shape layer I want. It's at the center of the screen roughly. My anchor point's at the bottom. You know, so it's like the hands of a clock. Got that? The expression is right here. Index asterisk. 360 is a full circle. /20. 20 is the number of shapes it takes to get a full circle. If I change this to 6, now it'll take 6 of these shapes to make a full circle. So I duplicate Command D. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more, 6. See? I only had to create one and do the animation and the texture on it. And now I've got that radial design they had. So let me undo that. I'm going to press U for my keyframes. I need to get to my trim path. It's drawing itself on. And then I can say, let's draw it off, which is the end point, like such. So let me easy ease these. That's my quick motion test. Draw on, draw off. My expression's still on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like such. So you can time that however you want. Does that help you out a little bit?
Yeah.
I used rough and edges, added a little bit of life to it. So on the shape layer itself, I chose add. Like, you know, you got to be on the arrow tool with the shape layer selected. And there's add up here, there's add down there. So what I added to it was trim paths, wiggle paths, and twist. And you're also going to have this recording to go off of. And you know what? I'll go File, Save As. I'll send this to the class as well. So Comp 4, I'll rename that. Let's see, what's Comp 3? Nothing, okay. Then Comp 1, Advanced Text Flickering. So I've got those labeled. So it's a combination of, you know, getting a less computerized looking shape. Now, if we want to push this even more, you could put texture in there and noise to give it some life. But I'm also going to make a new solid. I'll put a little bit of a displacement map in there. Call this fractal. Okay. Fractal noise. And I'm going to use this as my displacement map. And let's do a smaller one, so it's not too big. And I could have this constantly moving by adding time to the evolution. I held down Alt or Option and clicked on that stopwatch. Let's do 125. Let's see what that looks like. Subtle little motion there. Give it a little bit of life. So now I can pre-compose this. Move all attributes, click OK. Put it at the bottom, hide it. And if I want to affect every layer at one time, I add an adjustment layer. You can also get there by going layer, new, adjustment layer. So here's my adjustment layer. I throw my displacement map on there. So this will affect every layer below it. I choose my fractal map, effects and mask. Now we're really pushing it a little bit more. Something a little subtler than that. See how that looks so much different than it did before? It's got that more painterly hand-drawn look. And you can choose how much you want to displace it. It's all about pushing your look. Now I've got you all here, so we're going to mess around a little bit more. Let's try the dreaded colorama. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. I'm going to go back to 8-bit. Holding down Alt or Option, clicking there. Now colorama is going to work, okay? Let's try... Go blend it a little bit. What's going to happen if I put an expression on here? Now, I'm just randomly guessing to see what happens if I put an expression there. Okay, so that's not going to drive anything there. So I'm going to turn that off. Oh, wait. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's try 3 cycle repetitions there. Oh, look at that. We just did a quick, fast, easy colorizing of it. That might even help with your text, too. So it was cycle repetitions of this color wheel. So let's try golden. Now watch it, like I said earlier, you don't want it to be too flickering. You don't want to cause anyone to have a seizure. That one is more intense because there's far more points on it. See that? A little bit of color and interest, quick and easy, along with our texture and the roughening and all the edge work we did. And remember, you're all going to get this file. So just click on the effects control, hit U, look at where I put any expressions on things. That help you out a little bit? Okay, so now you see how you can quickly make shapes look less computerized and generic, add a little bit of organic painterly look to them, quickly flicker between colors. So now it's really just doing whatever you want with any shapes or images you want to draw, and then messing around with that text technique that we were doing tonight. And then you should be good. Yeah, and see, look right here. It's the mask. So if I hold down Shift to deselect that point, make my mask a little bigger, It's not going to happen again. Like such. So I appreciate you showing me that so that we could all not just brainstorm, but you're seeing the creative process, which a lot of people don't get a glimpse into off of YouTube tutorials. You know what I mean? That's why I teach the way I teach. Once you learn these techniques, you can mix and match them to copy other people's designs or come up with your own. I'm breaking it down: transition, rotation, position, scale. You know, are they using expressions? How might they be using expressions? You know, it's that thing where if you look at it and go frame by frame, sometimes you can figure it out on your own. It was good that we got to do the radial expression, which you put in the rotation. And it's that simple. It's index, asterisk, 360 for a full circle, slash, and then the number of shapes to make that circle. So, you know, you can do it with 3, you can do it with 5. It's all up to you. Just make sure you duplicate that. And what this index does is every time you duplicate a layer, it's rotating it. See there, it's rotated, 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 and makes the circle for you with each duplicate. So pretty quick and easy way to get a little bit of pizzazz. Let me try something here. I just did a couple points, okay? Go make this thinner. Add zigzag. Look at that. Now we've got a ton more points in zigzag. Smooth. Now we've got that happening, okay? And you could say the size of it. We could also at this point, if you want to add some interest to it, is you go to your stroke and taper it if you want. Like that. Look how quick and easy I got that. It was zigzag. Now, size segments. Okay, we got that happening. We got that happening. Here's my shape. And I'm thinking aloud. I'm like, okay, I've got a stroke. So check this out. I've got all these stroke stopwatches. Okay, I don't need to taper it anymore. There's my wave. Oh, hold on. Maybe it is inside trim paths where I can get an offset. So I'm going to add trim paths. Here's my offset. So let's put an expression in there. Let's go time asterisk 200. So it's constantly offsetting. And let's see if this animates itself for us. And since we have a taper, that's why it's doing that. So that's constantly moving for us based off of that. So if you have multiple shapes making this, it'll do that for each one. So if I've got the shape layer selected and I make an eyeball, and I make another eyeball over here, let's copy zigzag, paste it there, paste it there. Let's see if we can do the trim path simultaneously. We'll do all of them, no? Okay, let's remove that trim path. Or let's try copying it. Nope. Okay. So I'm going to have to add it there. Oh, wait a second. It is there. Why is it not? offsetting that. That's weird. Well, that probably would have been easier if I made all these shapes and then applied it all to one layer, but you're getting the idea. Turn off that expression. It's not even animating that one. That's weird. So if I go to contents, oh, let's try this. So I'm going to delete my trim path here. I'm going to select the thing that houses all the shapes. Now let's put the trim paths up here. See if it affects all of them. Oh, no, wait. We want time. That did that first path. Okay. And also, don't forget, I showed you before, but I'll show you again. Yeah, I'll do P for position. Click the stopwatch. Right click, toggle hold, go forward however I want. Move it, go forward, move it again, go forward. That's how you get that jumpy text look with toggle hold. So I'm going to try something with that. Yeah, I'm going to pick something more basic in hopes that you all have Arial. Okay, there's Arial. There's my pin. Just trying a quick puppet pin thing with it. I'm just experimenting here. I've not really used these new pins. Because that's what the new bend pins do. That's interesting. That's just the scale. there was some way that I was messing around with last year with puppet pins. I wish I could remember how I did it. That's one way you can stretch them up is so I got my pins in place, move the playhead forward, have that stretch up, and then a little bit afterward, hold down shift to get both of these and do that. Let me hide the mesh. Didn't hold it as long as I wanted it to. That's a little better. Or I could copy these keyframes, move forward, paste them, so now they're holding it down longer, like such. A little bit of that. And as this one is moving up, I could also select that pin and move it up higher. Keep the shape. There we go. Something like that. So that was with puppet pins. Stuff like that, I believe, is done with the repeat. So I'm going to make this 3D enabled. Give it a little perspective. Now let's see what happens if we put the repeater on it. Let's try echo. So what I'll do is I'll put this here, hit P for position, go forward. So there's my motion. Let's try echo. And then it'll eventually go away. Good. And I'm going to duplicate this, turn the echo off the top one. And then for this bottom one, let's try Gaussian blur. Okay, let's not do that. Let's try, give it more of a blobby look. New, we'll put an adjustment layer between the two of them. That's a little harsh. So let's try. Let's just try and make it a little less severe. We'll repeat the edge pixels, and let's try, we'll grab this fractal map that we had before, because, you know, why go through all that work again? And I'll put a displacement map on the adjustment layer to affect the layer below. See, now we're getting something a little bit more wild. And we can take this top text and make it a little bit darker to stand out from the type below it. So again, that's just me spitballing. Once you move something in After Effects, you can apply the echo effect to it. So I added an echo to get that stepped out look. I then duplicated the text, put it on top, turned off the echo for it. So I get this look while still keeping legible text. And then it'll ultimately animate itself up as the echo catches up to it. Just like that. So that's just another look. And what would happen while we're messing around? I hit switches and modes to my blending mode. I could probably put a blending mode on that. Nah, it's getting a little too... Yeah, we'll go without the blending mode. And this is thinking out your shapes. Like, see that? So they drew the multiple parts of the telescope and just stepped it out to hide those layers. So let me demonstrate that. Let's see what we got here. We'll copy this shape. That was all animation hierarchy that we just saw. Okay, so I'm going to paste. Now I'm going to get rid of my trim path. Good. Now with this, I can go to my path and redraw it. Just my path. I'm gonna hit the minus. And I'll get rid of that taper in a second. So make this much thinner. And I'm keeping my shape selected so it's all in one layer. So I've got all that happening. So we'll pretend this is one section of the telescope. Now I need to add a fill to it. So I'm going to add black. So that when we have the other layers move out from underneath it, oops, then it'll look like magic. All right, so let me scale this down a little bit. It's a little too big. Okay, my anchor point's up at the top. I can live with that. So I'll call this top of telescope. Command D to duplicate it. Mid telescope. Duplicate it. Command D. bottom telescope. All right. Oh, ha ha ha. Let me turn off that expression. I'm holding down Alt or Option and clicking on the stopwatch that has it. There we go. All right, so that fixes that. Top, then the mid, then the bottom. All right. So let's move this one. We'll scale it down a little bit. Okay, good. Then we'll move this one. Scale it down even more. I'm going to grab all of them and move them together. Okay, so let's make it look like this is animating out now. So we know it's going to go, the middle is going to push out of the top, and the bottom's going to move out of that. So how can we keep this together? Would parenting help or hurt? Let's try and parent the bottom to the middle. I can still move them independently. And I'll parent the middle to the top, because just in case you go moving this around, you want them to stay together. Okay, so we'll go forward a little bit. And this is where I'm going to want it to start sliding down. I've already gotten the location I want. So I go back to the first position, move it up inside the first part. And for the bottom of the telescope, I'm going to let that hang for a little bit. Start my motion here. Go forward. There. Okay, so here I can move this up inside it. So let's see if it works that way. And let me hit U for my keyframes. Easy ease them. Reduce my render bar. Animation hierarchy. We've got all that life and interest and texture from the first stroke. So if you like a look, like what we came up with here, you can copy that shape layer, bring it into a new sequence for another part of your animation and adjust it there. Like I got rid of the taper and I changed the line thickness, but I still have the expressions I put on it to give it that constant little bit of motion. I hope that helps some of you think through some of your animation hierarchy and come up with complex looks a little bit quicker. All right, so hopefully people found this LabTime helpful. Reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns.